Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And if you've watched my channel for a while now, you know that my mom passed away 10 years ago, and in her anniversary of her death is coming up. It's May 14th, and I never celebrate my mom's death date. It's just weird to me when people do that. I think if that's your gig, do it. I think it's fantastic. But for me, I would rather celebrate her life than the day that she died. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but that's just how I choose to live. And, I've got a lot of friends of mine that celebrate the date that their parent died or a sibling died. And I'm always very respectful of that. I'm like, okay, can you explain to me though why you do that? And they're like, I don't know. It's just I always remember them on that date. And I'm like, but why not their birthday? Or, why not just a random Tuesday that you guys love together? Or, remembering them on Halloween. I always remember my mom on Halloween because that was her favorite holiday. So if you want to see me rip roaring crying, come and see me on Halloween because that's typically when it happens. But if you've watched my videos, anyway, I was going to say that I want to do something special for, I don't know, this year, because it's 10 years, and so even though I say I never celebrate her death date, maybe this year I'll do something special on that day. God, I can't imagine getting on here and thinking about all the lessons I learned from my mom. That was something I was actually going to do. I forgot that I was going to do that Tony suggested that to me, that I was going to, Tony that watches my videos, he sent me a message and fantastic suggestions for this channel. So I was going to do 25 things I learned from my mother. And I'll do that maybe, I think, on the anniversary of her death. But if you've watched my videos for a while, what you'll know is that I was left the legacy of all of her journals that she had written in since she was 18 years old. So I have, tons and tons of journals. Here's an Indiana University journal. And so I picked this one out today out of the drawer, and I was reading it, and it was interesting. She said in here, just pages and pages. What have I learned from all of this journaling? Are you guys ready? Some of it is kind of crazy. Number one, don't say negative things when you feel insecure. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So she goes in here and she talks about this, and that, in our lives, a lot of times when we feel insecure about a situation or about ourselves, we go right to the negative, and that we don't allow ourselves to really look at our insecurity in that moment, that what we do is we transfer our feelings about ourselves or the situation onto something else, right? So it's have you ever gotten in the car and it's you don't feel good about yourself, or you're going to a job interview and you're like, oh, this coffee tastes like shit, or you start getting really negative about stuff. Instead of just saying out loud, I'm really insecure today about this job interview, or I don't feel very good about myself today. I don't feel like I look pretty. I don't feel like I look nice, whatever. And just kind of processing through that. So she talks about that in here, about it's more about doing work on self than it is taking those feelings and those emotions and putting them on other people. And I thought that was actually kind of fantastic. Number two, don't ever say or be aggressive when you feel insecure. And so then she goes in there and she talks about how one of the things that she's learned reading back over her journals is that a lot of times when she felt insecure in life, she would get very aggressive towards other people, So if she was in a situation where somebody, she felt insecure in relation to them, that she would almost kind of get aggressive towards them, either, verbally or not physically. My mother wasn't a physically aggressive person. Well, with my aunt once or twice or 10 times when they were in high school. But, she could get verbally aggressive. She could take you down to zero, and I think a lot of times it's really more about what's going on in our own head that we feel like we need to talk to somebody like that. And it very much reminds me of the Maya Angelou quote, that you're not in that. In that moment that you're coming for somebody, they're not in that. That's not about them. Let's take that statement and reverse it. When you're being negative to somebody or you're being nasty to somebody, is that really about that person, or is that about what's going on inside of you? A lot of times, if I'm being honest, when I'm being negative to somebody, it's about what's going on inside of Peter, not what's going on with the rest of the world. And I got to take a look at that. That's not okay, Number three, be private. Don't ask and don't tell too much about your life. And I think one of the things that would be interesting to her if she, and this is kind of a funny story, if she watched my channels and was alive today, I think she would say, you tell too much of your life. And what's interesting is, I tell a lot of my life. I really do. And for those of you out there that watch every second of every video of mine, my hour-long vlogs, my live streams, my tweets, everything, you see the Instagram pictures, you see everything out there, there's still about 30% that I keep personal to myself. And it's nothing that would surprise anybody. It's not anything that, you know, like, I'm talking about like dates with my husband or conversations that we have just standing in the house or family issues. You know, I have some family members that I will never talk about on camera. I have some friends of mine that have asked to never be mentioned on camera, and I respect that, you know? And I think it's important that we always keep parts of ourselves close to our hearts that we don't have to go full in. And the thing is that by being private about those other things, it allows me to be public and vocal about the things that are important for me to talk about, like my recovery, like my mom's passing, like my relationship, like my marriage, things like that, that, you know, keeping some things private allows me to be public about the rest of it. And I love that. Now, I will tell you this, back in the day, because my mom, you know, was sober. We were both sober at the same time. And her attitude about being sober was completely different than mine. She never told anybody that she was sober, that she was in recovery. And I would say, why are you not she's like, it's none of their business. And I'd say, well, you didn't care when you were parking the car in the front yard and everybody knew that was because you're drunk. I'm not sure why you're afraid to let people know now that you're sober actively in a recovery program. And she was always worried. You know, my mother had been a teacher. She was worried that the stigma of being an alcoholic would follow her around. She wouldn't get hired for a job. And I do think there's some of that that's true. As much as I hate to believe that, I do believe that, you know. I will tell you that when I was 18, I think I'd just gotten out of high school and I was in like an outpatient program at the time. It was like my third treatment. I've been through a lot. And I went to a meeting because I had to, and I will never forget, an ex-teacher of mine got up and spoke, and I was like, the whole time I was like, I mean, I wasn't serious about sobriety at all. I was like, oh, she's an alcoholic. She shouldn't be a teacher. I mean, isn't that horrible that I thought that way? I was like, oh, and she'd been sober for like 15 years at the time, you know. I was like, she's an alcoholic. I wanted to call all of my friends and tell them, right? I don't know if I did or not. I don't think I did. I don't think anybody would have cared. But anyway, I hope I didn't, because that's horrible, you know, anonymity. But I wasn't working a recovery program back then, but that doesn't make it right. But anyway, but she was so worried about that. And she would say, you know, she keeps lots of things private, and she always did. Don't interrupt people. What they have to say is just as important as what you have to say. Okay. Interrupting people and being late are my two worst character defects. I interrupt people constantly, and I don't even realize that I'm doing it. Like, if you watch me on video with other people, like, I'm constantly interrupting people. And Alex and Tanya are the two people in my life that will they'll hold me to it. Like, Alex will be, like, he'll stop and just look at me, and I'll be like, he'll go, and I mean, I could go on for 10 minutes having interrupted him, and then when he's done, he's like, can I go back to my story now? Like, he just didn't even listen to 10 minutes of it, which I kind of love, right? It's like, I'm not going to listen to you if you're not going to listen to me, right? And Tanya's the same way. Like, if I interrupt Tanya and I get like a half a minute in, Tanya will be like, I was talking, Peter, okay? So I've kind of trained myself more to listen to what other people have to say. I've learned to just, if you've noticed in my videos recently, I've tried to take pauses. See, even like that seems like a minute to me. I'm just so fast-minded that, like, I always think, and it's like, while somebody else is talking, I'm like, yes, I like want to jump in and say the next thing, but it's rude. And what it says is that what I have to say is more important than what you have to say, and that's just not true about anybody. What we all have to say is important, every one of us. And that's something that I always remember. When I'm sitting there and I'm having a conversation with somebody, I think to myself, what they have to say is just as important as what you have to say. Even if it's not as fun and it's boring, just listen. No, I'm joking. And then she said in here, let go and acceptance of what is, not what could have been. And I so agree with that. You know, that like so much of life is just letting shit go and just realizing that I don't have any control over what happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, it's maybe perfect that I'm talking about this in response to my mom's passing. You know, it's like, I can't change that. It is what it is. I share it in my stories. I share it in my vlogs because my mom was such a damn important part of my life. She was my mom, you know? And she was a really cool chick on top of that. Like, the fact that I got a journal where she's sitting here talking about what she learned from journaling is cool on its own, you know? But other than that, the funny stories, all that kind of stuff, you know? But at some point, you kind of have to move on. And I was talking about that the other day. It's like, I don't want to sit and be reading journal entries 20 years from now. You know what I mean? Like, and she wouldn't want that for me either. So at some point you have to let go of what happened and you have to move on and say, okay, I'm willing to accept life where I'm at today and all the great lessons that have happened and all that kind of stuff. One of the greatest lessons I've ever learned in my life is when I said to myself, okay, but what now? And what I mean by that is that when my mom passed away, and this was 10 years ago, and 10 years ago this month, probably, well, she died in May, so coming up on 10 years. But, you know, when my mom passed away, I had gotten out of this, I was just talking about this in my vlog last night. I had gotten out of a horrible relationship, and, you know, like, I had ended a 13-year career. I was terrified. I did not know what the world held for me next. And, when you guys go try to watch the vlog from last night, this is actually St. Patrick's Day when I'm filming this, so it would be from the 16th. I'm just telling you, I pre-filmed this. So anyway, but I talked about it extensively, that, you know, I was very, very scared. I had no idea what the world would hold for me. If you had shown me 10 years down the road, you'll have 4 YouTube channels and you'll have a business that you love and you'll be married to the man of your dreams and you got 3 dogs and you're living in a house, I'd be like, what? No, that's not gonna happen. I was terrified. I had no idea what my next move was gonna be. And I'll never forget, I left the hospital, you know, after my mom passed away. That night I left and I played Mr. Tambourine Man by Bob Dylan, and I was driving home and I was like thinking to myself, okay, but what now? She's gone, what now? Okay, you can't bring her back. What is your life gonna look like now, and what do you want from your life? And to some degree, as much as I miss my mom, it was freeing, you know? Like, I could be Peter all alone for once in my entire life. And there was a part of it that was so freeing to me, you know? That I wasn't Peter, you know, and this was my mom, and, you know, Peter and this was my dad, and I was Peter all alone. And as lonely as it was at times, it was very freeing too, you know? I remember the very first time that, like, not in a relationship, no job to go to the next day, my mom not around. I went to the casino at like 6 o'clock in the morning, ate the buffet, and stayed all day long. And I was like, and it felt so weird to me. And I was like, did I just do this? Like, this is so weird. You know what I mean? But it was fun. I had a great time doing it. And, you know, I've traveled alone. I've done other things alone. And so I had to look at my world and go, okay, this is what it is. This is what happened. This relationship happened. This job happened. All of this happened. It's over. What now? And the what now can be pretty damn exciting. Look at my life today. I have a really, really great life, you know? So anyway, thanks, Mom. Those were some great lessons. Tomorrow she goes in and she says, don't act 8th grade-ish. That might be a good one. Should we talk about that tomorrow? Okay, so I'll go on and I'll read some more of my mom's journals. If you guys enjoy this, leave it in the comment section below. And I love you, and I will see you later. Bye.